Welcome back to my series on troubleshooting your homeschool. We've been looking at the different ways in which we need to tweak our homeschool so that we can continue to improve and make our next semester even better. If you haven't seen the first two videos, make sure you go and watch those when we're done. They're all in this playlist together, so they're easy to find. But today we're going to look at one problem and all of the different issues it causes. This is probably the single biggest issue for the vast majority of homeschool parents, and many of them have never even heard of this issue, and so they don't know how to solve it. It is something called deschooling. Deschooling is a good thing. Deschooling is not the problem. The problem is that most families either don't deschool at all before they start homeschooling, or they do a very short and quick deschool and think, okay, well, that's enough. Now let's just get on with it. So first, let's talk real quickly about what deschooling is. And I do have in the description some resources that can help you with this. So this is just a very quick description. Read my article on deschooling if you want all the ins and outs. But the basic idea is that deschooling is giving yourself or your child the chance to detox from the conventional approach to education. For kids, that looks a certain way. For adults, it looks very different because we have not just been in public schools the way our kids most likely have been before you started homeschooling, but we have spent decades, right, as adults, or at least decades growing up in a society that upholds the public school system as the approach to education. And when you approach your homeschool with that in your head, it significantly limits what you see as being possible. It puts your homeschool in this tiny little box, and you have so few options. You have so little freedom. It's very constricting. And it does not take long before you're chafing against this and thinking, this is not what I thought homeschooling was going to be. I kept hearing all this great stuff. This is not great. This is miserable. I don't know what's wrong. Well, the problem is that you didn't deschool. You did not take the time to detox your brain from the conventional approach to education. Now, I cannot go into how you do that in this video. Definitely check out the resources and especially check out my deschooling experience, because that is going to turbo boost your deschooling process, which by itself can often take years. So if you want to shorten years to like weeks or months, then definitely check out the deschooling experience. But what we are going to talk about today are some of the different ways that you might see this problem manifest in your homeschool. If you are seeing these struggles, then now you know what the solution is. The solution is to deschool. The solution is to press pause on your homeschool. Do not jump into the next semester. Instead, say, you know what? We are going to take some time and focus on deschooling first. The first problem that a lot of families will have is that they default to conventional education. Now, you maybe are aware of some of the other methodologies that are out there, like classical or Waldorf or unschooling or Charlotte Mason, and you may even kind of dabble in those and try to do them based on what you've seen other people do. Maybe you have friends that homeschool that way, or there are particular bloggers or vloggers that you follow that homeschool in that way. And so you know what homeschooling with that methodology looks like. But because you haven't deschooled, you find yourself over time gravitating back to that very structured, very top-down, teacher-focused, checklist-focused approach to education. And that system, that conventional approach, only works for a small percentage of kids. There are some kids that thrive in that, but the majority do not. And so when we keep defaulting to that approach, if that's not what works for our kids, we end up with this: tons of contention, tons of frustration. We tend to gravitate towards teaching things that aren't really relevant, but we teach them because that's just what you're supposed to teach. Or we teach using certain materials because that's just how you teach. We forget, well, I shouldn't even say we forget. It's not that we forget, we don't know. We don't know all of these different things about the way the brain learns, the way that children are wired to learn at different phases of their life, that allow us to have the confidence to let go of those things and to homeschool in a different way. So if you have not deschooled yourself, then chances are that's one of the problems you're seeing. You keep defaulting to that conventional approach, even if you're actively trying to homeschool with a different kind of method. The second problem you probably have is that you tend to hold very tightly to control of your homeschool. You are afraid to give your kids any kind of choice. You feel like you have to do things a certain way or their education is not complete, or it's not valid, or you're going to break it somehow, or you're going to leave something out, or you're going to forget something super important, or. There are all these fears that you tend to hold on to, along with holding on to that control, because you have not deschooled yourself. So if you find yourself controlling your children's education instead of facilitating it, coming alongside them or even behind them to just kind of give them ideas and to steer them as they pursue the things that they're interested in, then chances are it's because you have not deschooled yourself. The third problem we see when people haven't deschooled is that they let their curriculum be the boss. They tend to look at curriculum almost as if it's magic. It has all these parts and we have to use it exactly as the book says, or else the education isn't going to be right. We're not going to do it right. You're going to miss something. We're going to be falling back on all of those problems that we just saw in the previous point, right? And so we let the curriculum become the boss. The curriculum tells us everything about what we're supposed to do with our homeschool. It rules our schedule, it rules our routine, it rules all of our days, the time that we have free, the time we don't have free, and it becomes this taskmaster that wields this checklist in front of us and makes us feel like I have to do everything on here or everything's going to be wrong. I'm going to mess everything up. I have to follow the curriculum exactly as it is. Curriculum is a tool and nothing more. You do not have to use curriculum at all to homeschool. Now, your state may say otherwise, but that's your state saying that. That is not the reality of actual homeschooling. That is politicians coming in and getting their fingers into something that they should not have their fingers in. That doesn't mean that homeschooling itself requires curriculum. It means that your state requires curriculum. But there are lots of people who homeschool with no curriculum at all. It is not a requirement of an education. How do you think people learned before curriculum? Curriculum was not a standard thing from the beginning of education, and people have been learning for centuries and millennia without it. So yes, it is possible, even in this day and age, with things being so much more complex in terms of technology and science and all the things we know. Guess what? Your kids can learn that stuff without curriculum. Honest to goodness, they can. Doesn't seem like it, but it's true. And when we have not deschooled ourselves, we tend to see curriculum as like our life preserver. If I just wrap myself around this curriculum, I can put all my trust in it and I can know that my kids are going to come out with a good education. Well, that's not actually true. The curriculum you use is not going to guarantee that your children get a good education. It might guarantee that you are going to provide them with exposure to lots of wonderful things, but that doesn't mean they're going to learn it. And it doesn't mean they're going to enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying something, chances are you're not catching it. It is not sinking in. So curriculum is very useful. It can be a wonderful thing. And I'm not saying that once you deschool, you'll stop using curriculum. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to drive anybody into unschooling, which is a form of homeschooling without curriculum. What I'm saying is you need to make sure curriculum stays in its proper place. It is a tool and you are the boss, not your curriculum. So if you find yourself in this place where you feel like curriculum is wielding, this whip over you and that you have to do all this stuff, chances are it's because you have not deschooled. Now, remember as well, if your children have spent any time in public school, they need time to deschool as well. If you bring them home and immediately put them back into an academic environment at home, just because it's at home and now they get to do it on the couch in their pajamas, does not suddenly make it better, particularly if that particular system was not a good fit for them. It might be that your child does not learn academics very well when it's done in a formal way. And it is very difficult to let go of that formality when you have not deschooled. But your kids, even though that system maybe doesn't work for them, it doesn't mean that when they get home, they can automatically let go of all that and dive into even a really great homeschool experience. They still need time to detox from that. And if they had any kind of learning disabilities, or if they were bullied, if there was anything really negative going on, then unfortunately that negativity is now connected with their idea of what education is. And part of what deschooling means for them is separating that negativity from the concept of learning. The other issue that happens when our kids have been in the public school system or the conventional school system, because even private schools tend to follow that approach, right? If they've been in that conventional approach for a long time, it also crushes their natural interest in learning and their natural drive to be curious completely atrophies. Because when you're in a public or even a private school system that is focused on the conventional approach, they are not given any freedom. They're told what they're going to learn, when they're going to learn it, how they're going to learn it. They have to learn it on a particular deadline. They have to learn it in a particular method. And it doesn't matter if that works for them or not. That's just how it is. And so they do not have the opportunity to exercise their curiosity muscle. And it's like a muscle. If you are not allowing yourself to follow your curiosity and go down rabbit holes and chase little things that are interesting to you and learn the things that you think are interesting to learn, then your curiosity atrophies. And human beings were created to learn. That is, when you look at what a baby is doing, a baby is a master scientist. They are constantly doing experiments on the world around them, experimenting with what things feel like with their hands, what they feel like with their mouth. What happens when mom says not to do something and you do it anyway? Honest to goodness, they're doing experiments. They don't know that's what it is. They're not, comparing data and doing, analysis, but they are investigating the world, which is exactly what scientists are supposed to do, right? So our children are born with this innate drive and desire to learn. Human beings were made to learn and to be curious and to solve problems. And when we put them in an environment that gives them no opportunity to do that, does not allow them to exercise those muscles, then all that drains away. And education just becomes this dry and boring thing that's getting thrown at them that they have no say in. And is it any wonder that our kids don't like school? So when you bring your kids home, just because they were at a great school, just because they got great grades, does not mean that that system worked for them and that they're ready to just dive in. They still need time to detox from the conventional approach to education. I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment and let me know, do you see any of these trouble spots in your homeschool? And have you taken the time to deschool? Don't forget to check the resources that are listed in the description. If you learned something today or if you appreciated this information, please like and subscribe. I would love to be able to share more information with you. Make sure you watch the other two videos, especially the second video in the series, because we talk about even more issues that are caused by deschooling in that video. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.